Yes, I hope that you're all doing well. This is part 2 of the May-June 2025 paper, still under inventory. So we were at the television sets part, we are done with the headphones. Let's read the information again. The stock of television sets is valued using the specific identification stock valuation method. The business sold two models, we have Quantum and Crystal, from 1st of March 2024, the beginning of the financial year. A new TV model, Limpid, was introduced on 1st of December 2024 to replace the Quantum TV model. Required, calculate the closing stock of the television sets on 28th of February 2025. Okay, so let's read our information again. The stock of television sets is valued using the specific identification method. Okay, so when you calculate our closing stock, we have to use the specific identification method, okay? Make a few notes as you read the information. Make sure that you update whatever's given to you. It's worth 9 marks, okay? 3.4, we have Helen wasn't satisfied that she was selling an average of 19 Crystal TVs per month. However, she is happy that the new look TVs, despite its higher selling price per unit, is selling at a quicker rate than Crystal TVs. Calculate the cost of sales of the limpid TVs. You guys know how to calculate the cost of sales. Calculate how long in days it'll take Helen to sell the closing stock of the limpid TVs. Okay, we also have Helen feels that she made a wise decision by replacing the Quantum TVs with the limpid TVs. Give one possible reason with figures to substantiate her opinion. It's worth 2 marks. 3.5, refer to information D. Explain how this will have a positive effect on our business. Provide 1 point. Okay, let's look at our information. We have information A, B, C, D. That is all that you have to focus on. The rest talks about vacuum and pressure cleaners. That is not what we have to work on in this question. So our information, we have information A, you have opening stock, you have date, TV models, units, cost price per unit, and total. On the 1st of March 2024, we had two TV models. You had Quantum and Crystal. For Quantum, the opening stock, as they've specified, was 123 units and 72 units for these respective TV models. Then we have a cost price per unit, which is 4,800 for the Quantum. Then for the Crystal, the cost price per unit is 6,500. So let's say 123 times 4,800. Remember, play around with the figures so that you familiarize yourself with the information that you've been given. So when you multiply 123 with 4,800, you get 590,400. That figure makes sense. Let's move to Crystal. You have 74 units times 6,500, which gives us 72 times 6,500 is 460,000. Okay, that figure is also accurate. This table makes sense. Remember, it's your opening stock. They don't say anything about closing stock units, so it's not given to us. Let's move to B. We have purchases. We have our date on the 1st of July 2024. We bought Crystal TV models, and we had 168 units, and the cost price per unit was 6,500. Then the total is 1.2 million. So let's say 186 times 6,500. It gives us 1,209,000. Let's move to limpid. We had 115 units times 7,200, which gives us 828,000. Okay, this table makes sense. The purchases, they only purchased Crystal and limpid. Okay, let's move to our sales. Sales for the financial year ended 28th of February 2025. TV models, we sold Quantum, Crystal, as well as limpid. Okay, units, we sold 105 units, which is a fair amount. Then Crystal, we have 225 units that were sold. This is our highest. For limpid, we have 94. That is low compared to the Crystal TVs. Okay, so selling price per unit, meaning when you went to the store and you wanted to buy one Quantum TV, you had to pay 5,950. So let's see, 105 times 5,950 should give us 624,750. I verified this with the calculator. You should do the same thing. Let's move to Crystal. We had 225 units that were sold times 9,750. This should give us 2,193,750, excuse me. Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to limpid. Can you guys see something? With the crystal TVs, we sold the most units. However, the selling price was high, meaning this is our most expensive TV. So this is an impressive figure. Let's move to limpid. We had 94 units that were sold. These are very low units compared to the others. Then the selling price was 10,500, which gives us 987,000. So this is the most expensive TV. I guess that's why it sold the least units. Okay, now let's add all our units. We have 105 plus 225 plus 94, which gives us 424. Okay, this makes sense. Let's move to total. We have to add 624 plus 2 million plus 987. It should give you 3,805,500. Okay, we have information D, donation of television sets to local schools. Helen donated the unsold quantum TVs to local high schools, which means, guys, Helen donated the unsold quantum TVs to the local schools. That means we don't have the closing stock. Okay, no closing stock units. Why? Because she donated the TVs that were remaining. So let's move to our information again. Required, remember this, refer to information D. Explain how this will have a positive effect on a business. What happened in information D? She donated TV sets. I think that is a very easy 2 marks. We'll get to this. Let's move to 3.1. We have calculate the closing stock of the television sets on 28th of February 2025. We have to use the specific identification method. They told us this information there. Okay, how do we find the value again? Remember, you have to find our closing stock units and multiply it with the cost price per unit. That is what I did in the previous video. If you haven't watched the specific identification method video, please go and watch it before you continue with this one. The link will be in the description, the link to the playlist. Okay, so let's look at what we have. Remember, with the specific identification method, we have to specify our inventory. For every model, we should have calculations under that certain model. So we have quantum. We also have crystal. We also have limpid TVs. How do we find our closing stock units again? Remember, I said that you don't have to cram the formula. It's given to you. Here, you have your opening stock. So we'll say opening stock. What else do we have? In information D, we have our purchases. So we have to include our purchases. We have to plus our purchases. What else do we have? C, we have sales. Remember, we subtract our sales. What else do we have? Donation. For donations, we have to subtract donations as well. If we had carriages or other factors like returns, we'd have to subtract those things or add them. You guys know the formula. So this is our formula. All of this will give us our closing stock units. Closing stock. Let me just say closing stock instead of closing stock units. Okay, so let me minimize this information. Let me put this here. Let's start with the quantum, okay? Heading quantum TVs. We have to use this formula to find the closing stock units. So, under quantum, what is our opening stock? This quantum, we had 123 units as our opening stock. So we'll say 123. We have to add our purchases. Let's look at our B. We have purchases. We bought crystal as well as limpid. It says nothing about quantum, so we do not add anything under quantum. There's nothing that we can do. Let's move to the other information. We have our sales. For Quantum, we sold 105 units, so we have to subtract that 125. Guys, can you see that you don't have the purchases for Quantum? Don't freak out, it's okay. If you don't have something, just work with whatever that you're given. So we said 123 minus 125, which is our sales. What else do we have? Donation of the television sets to local schools. Helen donated the unsold Quantum TVs to the local high schools. How do we find the unsold units? We have to say 123 minus 125. What is your answer? 123 minus 125. It should be 105 instead of 123. So 123 minus 105 should give you 18 units. So Helen donated these 18 units. Okay, so we have to say 123 minus 105 minus 18, which is 0. Verify with a calculator. So we have 0 units. We have nothing in our closing stock. We had 18 units, but it was donated. Therefore, we have nothing for Quantum TVs. So we have to say this 0 times your unit cost price. Let's look at the information under Quantum. We have 4,800. Okay, so you have to say 0 times 4,800, which is 0. We have nothing. This is the total value for Quantum TVs. This makes sense simply because you have nothing. 0 Quantum TV units. Therefore, your inventory is worth nothing because there's nothing there. So let me take this information right there under all of that. Okay, let's move to, now we're done with Quantum units, right? Now let's move to Crystal. What do we have? We have to look at our opening stock. For Crystal, we had 72 units. So we have to say 72 as our opening stock. We add our purchases. Let's look at our purchases. In information B, for Crystal, we purchased 186 units on the 1st of July 2024. So you have to say 72 plus 186. Let's look at the following information. You have sales. So under Crystal, we had 225 units that were sold. So you have to say minus 225. What else do we have? We have donations. There's nothing about Crystal under the donations, so we do not have to include that information. So you have to say 72 plus 186 plus 225 should give you 33. This is 33 units. So we have to multiply this 33 with our unit cost price. For Crystal TVs, what is our unit cost price? We can find the information here or there. It's 6,500. So we'll see 33 times 6,500 should give you 214,500. That is the value of your closing stock for Crystal TVs. So let's also include this information there. You guys will obviously write this in your exam answer sheet or your book. When you do so, this information will not be as I've written it. It'll obviously be on paper, so you'll have to write everything in a long list. Okay, let's move to the remaining units. We had Quantum, we're done with Crystal. Let's move to Limpid TVs. So Limpid TVs, what do we have? For our opening stock, we have Quantum and Crystal. There's nothing about Limpid TVs, so there's nothing that we can start with. We don't have our opening stock. So let's move to the next thing. We have purchases. Even if you don't remember this formula, the information is right there. You know that from your opening stock, you have to go to your purchases. So this will be Crystal and Limpid. We're dealing with Limpid. So under Limpid, we had 115 units that were purchased. So you have to say 115. What else do we have? We have sales, remember we subtract our sales. For limpid TVs, we sold 94 units, so we have to say 94. So this will be 115 minus 94, which is 21. It's 21 units. You guys know the formula. If you say 21 times your cost price per unit for limpid TVs, it's 7,200. 7,200, which should give you 151,200. This is the value, the value of your closing stock. So we're done with limpid TVs. Let me just minimize this so that it's easy to read. Guys, we had quantum, crystal, as well as limpid. Right under quantum, we had 0 as our closing stock. As our closing stock balance. In crystal, we had 214,500. For limpid TVs, we have 151,200. So you have to say 0 plus 214,500 plus 151,200. When you add all these, you should get an answer of 365,700. Now, if you want to find your closing stock units, you can just add this with that and that, which should give you, let me say, closing stock units is equal to 0. It's not in rands because it's the units. 0 plus 33 plus 21, which should give you 54 units. You had to find the value of your closing stock, which is 365,700. So I just did this in case they ask you how many units you have left. You'll just have to add all 3 of these. So you're done with 3.3. Your final answer is 365,700. Now let's move to the next question. Let's go to 3.4. It says, Helen was not satisfied that she was selling an average of 19 crystal TVs per month. However, she is happy that the new limpid TVs, despite its higher selling price per unit, is selling at a quicker rate than crystal TVs. Calculate the cost of sales of the limpid TVs. I explained what the cost of sales is in the previous video. If you're still not certain, if you still haven't understood it, please go and watch the previous video. So for our cost of sales, we have to go to our sales. How many units did we sell? We sold 94 units for limpid TVs. So you have to say that 94 times our cost price, or our cost price per unit, it's 7,200, which is 676,800. This is our cost of sales. You guys know this. That's an easy, you're done with this, and that's an easy 3 marks. Let's move to the next question. Calculate how long in days it'll take Helen to sell the closing stock of the limpid TVs. This is basically our stock holding period. It'll be closing stock. Let me specify this. Calculate how long in days is our stock holding period. This will be closing stock units over your sales or units sold. Let me just say units sold times 365 days. That is our formula. I don't know whether I've done this before. If I haven't, please make sure that you have this formula in your notebook. So closing stock units, let's check. We're dealing with limpid TVs. For the closing stock units, we found that when calculating the value of the closing stock, when we use the specific identification method to find the quantum crystal as well as limpid. And under the closing stock units in the previous question, I said that we have 21 units that are remaining. That's before we multiplied it with the cost price, which was 7,200. So that 21 units, you have to divide it with the units that were sold, which is we sold 94 units. You have to multiply that with 365. Let's punch this in a calculator. We'll say 21 over 94 times 365, which should give you, this should give you 81,5 days. But you can just run this off and say 82 days. Instead of 81,506, it should be 82 days. This is the closing stock period. Let's look at the next question. Helen feels that she made a wise decision by replacing the quantum TVs with the limpid TVs. Give one reason with figures to substantiate her opinion. Let's move to information D. Information D says, donation of television sets to the schools. Ellen donated, so it's basically about donations. This is 3.4. Then let's split it about donations. Did she make the right decisions? So do you guys think that she made the right decision by donating the unsold units? How many units were they again? I think they were 18. Yes. Why? Because when a company donates, this could strengthen their local branding, and it could also lead to tax returns, and it's basically CSR, which is corporate social responsibility. So you can just write any of those points. You basically have to mention or list the advantages of companies doing donations. It could lead to tax returns, it could strengthen their local branding, it's also part of CSR or a tax strategy. So she did a good thing. We are done with 3.4 as well as 3.5. You'll get 2 marks for that. I want to write down that information. What's next? We have vacuum and pressure cleaners. This will be in the next video. We'll only do 2 questions and we'll be done. This question is basically about internal control and audit. So thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.